The screen is a void of absolute darkness. All you can hear is the rhythmic crunch of dry needles under heavy boots. A man's breath is ragged, hitching in his throat as if the air itself has turned to ice. "I found it," he whispers, his voice trembling with a terrifying realization. "The marker is right here." Suddenly, a sound like tearing silk rips through the heavy air. No scream follows that sound. Just a sharp, wet gasp of pure, paralyzed terror. Then, a soft, sickening thud against the forest floor. The wind returns, cold and indifferent, whistling through the ancient pines. What you just heard is a reconstruction of the final seconds of a human life. I am David Paulides, and this is the Missing 411 podcast. For over a decade, I have tracked the patterns of those who walk into our wildlands and never walk out. These are not just accidents or simple cases of getting lost. We are looking at a phenomenon that defies every law of logic and science. Today, we are going deep into the dark heart of the Missing 411. This is about survival in a world we don't truly understand. We begin our journey in the Great Smoky Mountains. Back in June of 1969, 6-year-old Dennis Martin is playing a game with his brothers near the Spence Field shelter. It is a beautiful sunny day with high visibility and happy families all around. Dennis hides behind a bush, waiting to jump out and prank his father. His father watches that bush, smiling and waiting for the boy to move, but that bush never moves. Dennis vanished in the time it takes for a human eye to blink once. There was no struggle, no rustling of leaves, and not a single sound. One moment he was a vibrant child playing a game, and the next, he was gone, erased from the face of the earth. Dennis Martin had stepped into a void that no one could see. The search that followed was the largest and most intense in the history of the region. Green Berets, expert trackers, and thousands of local volunteers flooded the mountain. But as the hours passed, something very strange began to happen. Witnesses reported seeing a rough-looking man or a creature in the deep brush. This entity was allegedly carrying something heavy over its shoulder, moving with impossible speed. Was this a feral human living off the grid, or was it something else? Like the Nantinaq, a primitive predator from the old legends. The FBI and the military moved in, but they weren't sharing what they found. Before any real ground could be gained, a freak storm rolled in. Violent rain and thunder washed away every footprint and every scent. The mountain was protecting its own secrets. Now let us move forward to 1992. Deep in the Adirondack Mountains, little Jarred Ketchum is playing in his grandparents' front yard. The woods are right there, looming over the house like a dark, silent wall. One minute he is laughing and playing with his toys. The next minute, his grandmother looks out the window and sees only an empty yard. Jarred had been snatched in a heartbeat. When the professional search dogs arrived, they did something we see constantly in these cases. They followed a hot trail for a few yards, but then they hit an invisible wall. These highly trained animals stopped dead, whined, and tucked their tails in absolute fear. They refused to move another inch toward the deep woods. It was as if they could sense something that our human eyes could not. Days later, Jarred was found alive, miles away, in a location no toddler could ever reach. He was in a remote logging area, shivering but otherwise unharmed. When he was asked how he got there, he told a story that haunts me to this day. He spoke of a nice lady in the rock who looked after him and fed him. He said she came out of the stone itself to keep him warm. Think about that for a moment. Was she a ghost or a being from a dimensional rift? We see this impossible travel and strange company in so many, 411 cases. Take Danny Philippidis, who vanished from a ski resort in New York. He ended up in California 6 days later, still wearing his ski gear. He had no memory of how he crossed an entire continent in total silence. These are not isolated incidents happening by chance. They happen in very specific clusters all across the national parks. Yosemite, the Cascades, the Rockies. These are places where the earth itself feels thin and heavy. People who survive often report something called the Oz effect. A sudden, suffocating silence where even the crickets and birds stop making noise. It is as if the entire world is being put on a mute button before a predator strikes. This total lack of sound is a hallmark of the missing 411 profile. It is a biological warning sign that you are no longer the apex predator. Something is observing you from the shadows of the trees, and it knows exactly where you are going to step next. Let's talk about the theories that the National Park Service refuses to touch. Could these clusters be related to UFO disappearances or alien abductions? In many cases, victims are found in areas that were searched dozens of times before. Their clothes are often found folded neatly next to them, as if they were undressed by force. Sometimes they are missing their shoes entirely, even in freezing snow. It is as if they were plucked from the earth by something from above, examined by a cold, alien intelligence, and then dropped back down. This would explain why there are no tracks leading away from the disappearance site. The earth remains undisturbed because the predator never touched the ground. They were lifted into the sky before they could even scream for help. Or perhaps we should consider the Skinwalker Ranch connection. Ancient legends speak of portals, places where the fabric of time and space is torn. If you step through a dimensional rift, you aren't just lost in the woods. You are lost to this entire reality. This perfectly explains why elite search dogs cannot find a scent trail. The scent doesn't end, it simply moves into a different dimension. Then there are the cryptids that people whisper about around campfires. Bigfoot, the Yeti, or something even older and more dangerous. Many missing 411 victims are found at the top of impossible cliffs. These are areas that even professional climbers struggle to reach. If a prehistoric survival is hunting our trails, it isn't just looking for a meal. It is playing a game with us. To survive a missing 411 event, you must first recognize the silence. If the woods go dead quiet around you, you are in the kill zone. Your primal brain knows this dread, even if your logical mind tries to ignore it. Do not stop to take a photo or investigate a strange light. You must turn around and move toward other people immediately. The silence is the sound of the trap closing. Second, you have to watch your electronics very carefully. Many victims' GPS units and compasses go haywire right before they vanish. Magnetic anomalies are extremely common in these 411 hotspots. If your tech fails, do not trust your own sense of direction anymore. Follow the last known physical trail and never let your group separate. In these woods, separation is a death sentence. Third, you must understand the concept of the weather weapon. It is statistically impossible how often a violent storm hits right after a disappearance. It is as if the phenomenon itself is scrubbing the crime scene clean. If you see a storm rolling in that wasn't on the forecast, get to safety. These storms are a curtain being drawn over a dark mystery. They are not a coincidence. The Park Service knows much more than they are letting on. They keep thousands of files that they will never release to the public. They have secret maps of danger zones that they hide from every visitor. Why would they do this? Because if people knew what was really happening, the parks would be empty. They would realize we are just guests in a place that belongs to something else. Something has lived in these mountains for millennia, and it does not want to be found or documented by our science. I have spent my life documenting these facts because the truth deserves to be told. Whether it is a dimensional rift or a prehistoric predator, the danger is real. Respect the wild, but never, ever trust it completely. Keep your gear close and your family closer. Let's look at another terrifying case from the archives. A young man in the Sierra Nevada mountains goes to fetch water from a stream. He is only 30 feet away from his camp and his friends. He never returns, and no splash is ever heard. 3 days later, his gear is found at the bottom of a deep crevice, but his body is found 5 miles away on a peak. How did he get to that peak without his shoes or his jacket? The terrain between the stream and the peak is nearly vertical. Search and rescue teams were baffled by the logistics of the move. They said it would take a helicopter to move him that fast. But no helicopters were in the air that night. Only the cold stars were watching from above. This brings us to the theory of the shadow people. Hikers often report seeing dark, flickering shapes out of the corner of their eyes. When they turn to look, there is nothing there but the trees. But the feeling of being watched persists for hours. These entities seem to move between the trees like smoke. They are the silent observers of the missing 411. Some researchers believe these are interdimensional scouts. They are marking targets for a later harvest. If you feel that prickle on the back of your neck, do not ignore it. That is your nervous system reacting to a predator's gaze. It is a frequency that we can feel but not hear. It is the vibration of the hunt beginning in the deep brush. We also have to consider the strange behavior of animals in these zones. Deer that stand perfectly still and stare at you with human-like eyes. Wolves that refuse to howl and birds that fall dead from the sky. Nature knows when something unnatural is present in the environment. When the animals act wrong, the environment is wrong. You should be moving toward the exit as fast as possible. In the Pacific Northwest, there are stories of the Siatko. These are ancient beings that can mimic the voices of your loved ones. They call out to you from the fog. Using a voice you trust, you follow the sound. thinking your friend is lost. But the voice leads you deeper and deeper into the swamp, until the trail disappears and the voice turns into a growl. This mimicry is a common theme in many disappearance reports. People hear their names being whispered by the wind. They feel a pull toward a specific cave or a dark grove. This is a psychological lure used by the phenomenon. It targets your mind before it ever touches your body. Stay focused on the trail and do not listen to the voices in the leaves. Another terrifying element is the presence of strange odors. Victims' families often report a smell of ozone or rotting sulfur. These smells are often associated with high-energy events or paranormal activity. If the air suddenly smells like a chemistry lab or a swamp, something has just crossed over into our world. The air is reacting to a foreign presence among the trees. We have to talk about the stone-cold facts of the clothing. Why are so many victims found completely naked in the freezing cold? Some call it paradoxical undressing, a symptom of hypothermia. But that doesn't explain why the clothes are folded neatly, or why the shoes are placed side by side on a rock. This suggests a ritualistic element, or a very specific type of examination. It is as if the clothes were an obstacle to whatever was taking them. Once the biological sample was taken, the casing was discarded. This points directly toward an extraterrestrial or interdimensional influence. We are being sampled like we sample fish in a stream. We are tagged, studied, and sometimes just left to die. The indifference of the phenomenon is the scariest part. Let's look at the time travel mystery. Some survivors return and think they have only been gone for an hour. In reality, the search has been going on for 3 days. Their watches have stopped at the exact moment they vanished. This indicates a localized distortion in the space-time continuum. They were caught in a bubble where time simply did not flow. Where were they during those missing days? They don't have hunger. They don't have thirst. They just have a sense of being in a gray, quiet place. Then, suddenly, they are back on the trail as if nothing happened. But the world has moved on without them. They are survivors of a rift that we cannot even map yet. You might ask, why isn't the media covering this? Because the truth would destroy the tourism industry for our national parks. Millions of dollars are at stake every single year. The government would rather call it a bear attack than admit they don't know. They offer easy answers for impossible questions. But we know the patterns, and the patterns do not lie. Always carry a personal locator beacon or a PLB. Even if the GPS fails, these high-powered signals can sometimes punch through. Carry a mirror for signaling and a high-decibel whistle. Most importantly, carry the knowledge of these cases with you. Awareness is the best defense against the missing 411. If you know the signs, you can avoid the trap before it springs. Never hike alone, especially in the high-risk clusters. Use the buddy system and check in with each other every few minutes. If someone goes missing, do not wait for the sun to go down. Start the search immediately and call for professional help. Every second counts when you are dealing with a dimensional event. The window of recovery is very, very small. We are living in a world that is much older and stranger than we think. Our ancestors knew to stay away from certain mountains and woods. They called them forbidden places for a reason. We have forgotten that ancient wisdom in our quest for recreation, but the phenomenon has not forgotten us. It is still there, waiting in the silence between the trees. I will continue to collect these stories as long as people keep vanishing. Each case is a piece of a puzzle that we are slowly putting together. We are looking for the common thread that connects the dots. From the Smoky Mountains to the rugged peaks of the Alps, the missing 411 is a global mystery that demands an answer. We will not stop until we find it. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. Stay vigilant when you step off the pavement and into the wild. Remember the silence. Trust the dogs. And watch the weather. The woods are beautiful, but they have a memory that is very long and very cold. I am David Paulides, and I will see you next time. One final thought before we close the books for today. If you are out there and you see something that doesn't belong, something that moves too fast or looks too strange, don't be a hero and try to document it. Just get home to your family. Because some mysteries are better left unsolved. Stay safe. To stay together. And may your path always lead you home.